Everybody good? Very good. Welcome everybody, my name is Andrew. I'm from the People's Power Assembly and also Struggle La Lucha for Socialism. Today is our first demonstration and press conference for our campaign, which we're calling Amazon Invest in Workers, Not Genocide. The People's Power Assembly has been taking to the streets in solidarity with Palestine since long before October 7th, 2023. But since the U.S. and Israel have renewed and intensified the genocide on Palestine, we have renewed and intensified our efforts to build a fighting mass movement. Part of this movement is to end complicity with apartheid Israel at all levels of society, from the universities to the city council to the White House. Whether reported on or not, the PPA has held regular demonstrations and marches. We've disrupted and shut down Baltimore City Council meetings at risk of arrest and protested illegal sales of stolen land in Gaza. But with the nearing of an advent of a year since the intensified genocide in Palestine, we understand that our fight must also intensify. Amazon is not only one of the richest and most powerful mega corporations, it is also one of the richest and most powerful corporate partners of apartheid Israel. And Amazon's warehouses and distribution centers are right here in Baltimore. Amazon is not just complicit in the genocide in Gaza, but enablers, contributors, and profiteers. The Israeli military uses Amazon's Project Nimbus cloud service to store surveillance information about Gaza's residents and to train military and police forces to use artificial intelligence. Part of the cloud platform includes a weapons platform, applications for targeting bombs, monitoring live drone footage, and firing and command and control systems. Amazon tech workers are already fighting to shut down Project Nimbus, and meanwhile, Amazon spends millions on union-busting firms instead of guaranteeing a living wage, benefits, and rights on the job. This campaign makes demands not only on Amazon, but also on Baltimore City government and the state of Maryland. To Amazon, we are demanding institute a $25 minimum wage and proportional wage increases for all workers across the board. Full-time benefits for all workers, regardless of status, and shut down Project Nimbus and all other projects, contracts, and investments with the apartheid government of Israel. To Baltimore City and the state of Maryland, they can take nearly any action to enforce these demands, but one of the minimum things that we are asking of them is for them to hold an open forum for Amazon workers in the community to testify without fear of reprisal on workplace conditions. One of the reasons we are also targeting Baltimore City Council is in the context of the death of Ronald Silver II, who works for Baltimore's DPW, who died of a heat stroke just a few weeks ago. To avoid their responsibility, to avoid taking any responsibility for their complicity in the death of Ronald Silver, the City Council held a show trial in the form of a public hearing. Instead of taking any responsibility as the top brass of all of Baltimore City government, they threw under the bus a few managers of the DPW, who certainly also need to take responsibility. But in front of Ronald Silver's family, in front of the entire public, Baltimore City Council made an enemy when they made an enemy of the people instead of taking responsibility as the bosses of the DPW. That is just one of the many reasons we're targeting Baltimore City, because they have another opportunity here to actually work in the long-term interests of workers in Baltimore City. That's the end of my opening remarks. Next, I'd like to introduce Alex, a member of the People's Power Assembly, to read worker testimony from an Amazon worker who wishes to remain anonymous.
Okay, so I wanted to read a passage from a book before reading this testimony. Closer. Yep. So this is an example of an organization with good leadership. A worker was killed in this organization, and then 14 hours later, the CEO ordered all of the plant's executives, as well as ALCO, that's the organization, officers in Pittsburgh, into an emergency meeting. For much of the day, they painstakingly recreated the accident with diagrams by watching videotapes again and again. They identified dozens of errors that had contributed to the death, including 2 managers who had seen the man jump over the barrier but failed to stop him, a training program that hadn't emphasized to the man that he wouldn't be blamed for the breakdown, and lack of instructions that he should find a manager before attempting a repair, and the absence of sensors that automatically shut down the machine that killed him. "We killed this man," a grim-faced O'Neill told the group, the CEO. "It's my failure of leadership. I caused his death. And it's the failure of all of you in the chain of command." Within a week of that meeting, all the safety railings at Alco's plants were repainted bright yellow, and new policies were written up. Managers told employees not to be afraid to suggest proactive maintenance, and rules were clarified so that no one would attempt unsafe repairs. "I want to congratulate everyone for bringing down the number of accidents even just for 2 weeks," the CEO wrote in a memo. "We shouldn't celebrate because we followed the rules or brought down a number. We should celebrate because we are saving lives. We are here to save lives." We are here to save lives. According to internal data during Prime Day, Amazon's rate of recorded injuries, which they are required to disclose to OSHA, was 10 injuries per 100 workers on Prime Day. Amazon's total injury rate, which includes injuries Amazon is not required to disclose, was just under 45 per 100 workers. That's nearly half of the company's warehouse workers. And so that's context for this testimony. "I was hired as a full-time holiday worker at Amazon MTN6 sorting center in September 2023. This is probably one of the worst buildings when it comes to meeting the basic labor standards for our community. I was there as a holiday worker for over 9 months, along with hundreds of workers before they finally converted to regular Amazon status. Some workers have been there for more than a year, as with all continuing as the holiday worker status. Holiday hire means we don't get the same benefits as standard Amazon workers. No vacation pay, no medical, pretty much excluded from benefiting anything that the company has to offer. What kind of holiday season lasts a whole year? How is this even legal?" While this was happening, there was multi-level failures of management that created a never-ending nightmare for all of us. To the day, none of these issues have been addressed properly. Managers will end shifts early based on lack of work without giving full-time workers their hours without consent. And when we get home, UPT, unpaid time, is deducted from our unpaid time off with no explanation. Managers are supposed to fill out paperwork for lack of work if the shift ends 2 hours early, so we get paid for the lost hours. Many times this paperwork was never filed. Instead, VTO, voluntary time off, is used without consent from the workers. Amazon HR was insensitive, misinformative, and inconsistent during this whole ordeal. Although they will tell you every day that we are not just numbers, in practice, there's nothing that they did to prove that. Every time I ask for help, I can feel a condescending tone towards us as if we did something wrong. Safety is not a thing in this building. Let me repeat that. Safety is not a thing in this building, even though that's what they utter at every meeting. But in practice, nothing is followed. If the fire marshal showed up on the Prime Day week, the building would have immediately shut down. Pretty much every fire exit path was blocked for that whole time. If you think I'm lying, all you have to do is videotape during that time. What Amazon is doing to its workers shouldn't be taken lightly. What they are doing to us should be illegal, yet they continue to operate with impunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker I'd like to introduce is Reverend Annie Chambers, member of the People's Power Assembly, and whose grandson worked at Amazon.
Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. I'd like to take the time to say that my heart goes out to my Palestinian brothers and sisters. And if we believe the lie, and it is a lie that's going around, that Palestinians killed 7 or 6 hostages, because it's a lie. You know Israel killed its own people. We know that. That man does not want that war to stop. He is a tyrant. People want to talk, if you looking at Hitler all over again, if that's what you want. I class him right in that category. Because we know that they're using that. And they're using the war to say Hamas killed them, Hamas did this. But they're fighting the people in the tunnel dead. They killed their own people just to keep the war going. He killed his own people. And let me tell you, we right here in this country, that's why I take every opportunity, and anytime we must stand up and speak out against injustice. When we talk about Amazon, my grandson got killed in a car accident. He was an Amazon worker. And they couldn't even take bathroom breaks. And when they had put them to work, the bathroom was so far away, but when they did have a break, that by the time they got there, it was time to go back. They couldn't go to the bathroom. Lunch breaks. It was under terrible conditions he was explaining to me. And I said, well, he said, but I need a job and I'm trying to hold out. This is like slave conditions that Amazon treat their workers. And then they again, with the lies, want to talk about opportunities for people when they come to Amazon. And we know that they are lying. We have to make the press print the truth, the real truth. So much lies have gone on in this country. Of course, you know America was built on lies, so I don't know why I'm all upset about them lying. Because whenever it's convenient for them, then they will come up with lies. But we must support and fight that there be unions in every job in America. We must fight and make sure that there's a union for every job. If it's nothing but picking up paper, don't care what job in America, we need unions to stand up and fight. We need people to be able to fight back. And I will end with this. There's no damn such thing as a black job. We can't do else does. So I wanted that message to get back because it keep coming out, but I want Donald Trump to know a black job is coming, black person is coming after the job he won't do. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. Our next statement is going to be given by a member of the People's Power Assembly. His name is Dayon. He's going to read a solidarity statement to the Mask Off Maersk campaign initiated by the Palestinian Youth Movement.
Mask of Maersk Solidarity Statement. The People's Power Assembly is proud endorser of the Mask of Maersk campaign initiated by the Palestinian Youth Movement. We see this fight against Amazon as a local forum of this campaign. The Palestinian Youth Movement campaign to cut ties with genocide is a fight against Maersk and one of the world's largest shipping and logistic companies that directly facilitates the weapons trade. Without Maersk, Israel would not have the weapons to commit its genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. Maersk is one of the most profitable companies on earth, with money soaked in the blood of over 440,000 Palestinian martyrs. We demand Maersk cut ties with Israel and end its complicity in the genocide of Palestinians. Since October, Maersk has transported over 300 million of weapons components to the top 5 weapons manufacturers of the USA for assembly. For example, Maersk transports the wings of Lockheed Martin F-35 fighter jets to the US where these weapons are manufactured. After assembly, these weapons are sent to Israel from the US. In fact, 68% of Israel's weapons come from the US. The majority of these weapons are sent by the US Department of Defense, which Maersk also has links to. Specifically, Maersk is part of the voluntary intermodal safe fleet agreement. It's called VISA, and the Maritime Security Program, MSP, which transports weapons on behalf of the US Department of Defense. Maersk is both complicit in the transport of weapons, components to the US, and the transport of weapons from the US to Israel, making it a critical link in the weapons supply chain. Logistic companies with Maersk as the industry leads are the invisible profiteers of weapons manufacturing, making the genocide of Palestine a reality. Targeting Maersk directly disrupts the flow of weapons in the supply chain of that used to genocide Palestinians. We are here to mask off Maersk and Amazon. No more profiteers of genocide. Free Palestine.
Thank you. Our next statement is from Joyce Butler, member of the People's Power Assembly.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're here to demand that Amazon divests from genocide. We support workers, not war. This fight will continue until Amazon provides $25 per hour for every worker across the board, all the way across the board, all the way across, no shortcuts, no deviation. So we're here today, hashtag 25, hashtag 25. And I heard my comrade say something, and I'll repeat it. Cut ties with genocide. Cut ties with genocide. Cut ties with genocide. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple more statements from the People's Power Assembly. I'd like to introduce Andre Powell.
Good afternoon, sisters, brothers, and siblings. It's a little bit of Baltimore labor history as we gather here today on this Labor Day. In Baltimore in the mid-1970s, Bethlehem Steel Sparrows Point shipyard had 17,000 workers. This is quite a reduction from the previous decades. In 1969, the Guinness Book of World Records cited Bethlehem Steel Sparrows Point plant as the largest steel plant in the world, as it was employing tens of thousands of workers. This included my brother, my cousin, my best friend across the street in my neighborhood, his father, and the fathers of many of the school children that I went to school with out in Baltimore County. Now, Bethlehem Steel's shipyard closed down in 2012 after several changes in ownership, many layoffs and terminations of employees. In 2003, Wilbur Ross, who is a protege of Donald Trump and a good friend, got rid of health care for thousands of Bethlehem Steel retirees and spouses. When you're retired and your spouse, this is all the money, the income that a retiree has to live off of. This included a takeover of their retiree pensions, which were eventually cut by several $100s each month. Today, in that same space where Bethlehem's Steel Sparrows Point plant stood strong, firm, providing a way for many, many workers in the state of Maryland, the Baltimore region, to pay for mortgages, rent, put their children through college. Today stands in that place an Amazon warehouse with 2,000 employees. These employees make half of the pay of the union members at the former steel mills and shipyard with almost no benefits. You've just heard some of them described. That is a world of difference from the union pay and benefits that Bethlehem steel workers enjoyed under leadership of the United Steel Workers Union. Jeff Bezos uses his profits from this cheap labor that he pays to support Israeli genocide against Palestine instead of paying Amazon workers decent wages and benefits. We stand here on Labor Day to say, unionize Amazon now. And on this Labor Day here in Baltimore, we also send our solidarity to striking hotel workers that are striking down Pratt Street over by the Camden Yard Stadium. We send our solidarity to the Baltimore hotel workers and to hotel workers around the U.S. Union power. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. Next, I'd like to introduce a speaker from one of the endorsing organizations of this campaign from the Party of Socialism and Liberation, Clara.
Thank you so much. My name is Clara. I'm an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Thank you so much to the People's Power Assembly for hosting this rally to demand that Amazon invest in workers and not genocide. Most of us have probably heard about the exploitative working conditions that Amazon imposes on its workers, like some of the ones that we heard about today. Some of us may have lived them. But to struggle against Amazon and the capitalist system that makes corporations like Amazon possible, we have to understand the way this exploitation is occurring, who benefits from it, and how. To put it in perspective, we can look at how Jeff Bezos' net worth has grown in just the last year. Last year, he was worth $107 billion, and this year that's grown to $177 billion. That means that Jeff Bezos made an estimated $7.9 million an hour last year, and that's calculated per hour in the day, not the work week. In comparison, in 2023, the median earnings of an average U.S. worker over a lifetime was calculated to be $1.7 million, which means that Jeff Bezos makes the average lifetime earnings of an American worker in just under 13 minutes. But did Jeff Bezos actually earn that money? No. It was Amazon workers who picked the products, packed the products, delivered the products, managed the delivery information, and answered customer service calls. If Jeff Bezos decided to pack up tomorrow and live on the moon, Amazon would still be perfectly capable of delivering packages to our doorstep, because it is the workers who make the companies run. Jeff Bezos steals the value of workers' labor to pad his over $500 million property portfolio, to buy the Washington Post, or to lobby to cut any regulations or worker protections. U.S. corporate interests like those of Jeff Bezos are one and the same as the interests of U.S. empire. Just look at the carousel of war criminals who rotate between positions in corporate C-suites and positions on government staff. In office, they pass the bills for invasions, coups, sanctions, bombs, and arms shipments to clear the way for the international corporations they used to head. Jacobo Arbenz was ousted in Guatemala to make way for the United Fruit Company. The Bolivarian process in Venezuela continues to be attacked on behalf of Citgo, and the Middle East has been the target of constant invasions and coups so that oil companies can plunder their natural resources. So we understand that politicians, Genocide Joe, Blinken the Butcher, and every other war criminal in office are not acting alone. They serve the monopoly capitalists that fund their campaigns and keep them in power. So it is not senseless for Jeff Bezos to donate millions to both Biden and Trump, and likely Kamala. He is guaranteeing that no matter who wins, the policies of empire and imperialist plunder continue uninterrupted. The colonization of Palestine is only senseless to the masses who have no vested interest in the genocide of thousands of people on their own land. But to the state servants in both government and corporate offices, it's perfectly logical. There is no separation between the interests of the state and the interests of corporate capital. What serves U.S. empire serves Amazon, and what serves Amazon serves U.S. empire. Every school bombed, every child killed, every inch of land stolen from the Palestinian people is another dollar for Jeff Bezos and other war profiteers. To really understand how the ruling class reproduces this profiteering, we can look at how its mouthpieces are born, and how they maintain control over all institutions in our life. One example of a ruling class mouthpiece is Jay Carney, who Amazon employed for years as a lobbyist. Carney successfully lobbied against consumer privacy protections, getting rid of or undermining privacy protections in bills in at least 25 states. Though Carney isn't a lobbyist now and wasn't a lobbyist before his job at Amazon, his role in the ruling class machine was just as vital before as it is after. Carney began his career as a reporter and ended up working for Time magazine for 20 years. For his loyalty to the ruling class propaganda mill, faithfully promoting the ruling class line as press correspondent to both Republican and Democratic politicians, Carney was rewarded by becoming Time's Washington Bureau Deputy Chief, then ultimately its chief. Carney went from Time's Washington Bureau Chief to Communications Director of Biden when Biden was Vice President, to Press Secretary for Obama himself. It was only after playing this role in legitimizing the rule of pro-capitalist politicians that Carney began outright working for the capitalists themselves, first as a lobbyist for Amazon, now as global head of policy and communications at Airbnb. But in reality, Carney was working for the capitalists long before he worked for the corporations. His reporting helped legitimize American imperialism abroad, while his lobbying here at home helped reduce consumer protections so that corporations can become more and more effective at selling to and surveilling us. Here in Baltimore, the result of the work of ruling class cronies like Carney is that it is seen as perfectly normal for a war profiteering company like Amazon to profit off the labor of people here while partnering with the Zionist regime to surveil Palestinians abroad. But every day that the Palestinian people continue to resist their colonization, they serve the global anti-imperialist struggle and reveal the ruling class status quo for what it is, an ongoing violent project. Right now, the Palestinian people are the forefront of the fight against U.S. empire, and the empire understands this well, because their struggle is our struggle. And when Palestine achieves victory over the Zionists, we too will be one step closer to our own liberation here in Baltimore. This is why we commit ourselves to fighting, knowing it could take our entire lives until victory. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One more statement from an endorsing organizations, the Anti-Imperialist Action of UMBC. I'd like to introduce Jasper.
Hey everyone, thank you for having me today. I'll also like to speak on behalf of the alliance that my organization is a part of, which is the International League of People's Struggle, the Baltimore DMV formation, which Palestinian Youth Movement and People's Power Assembly is also a part of. And it's very important that everyone out here today is committed to actually being present in the streets to fight for the liberation of Palestine and to fight for the struggles of workers here and internationally. Because we see that as the crisis of imperialism continues to worsen, workers' benefits are getting cut. We're seeing intensifying wars of aggression happening like all over the place. There's not like a single place in the world nowadays that isn't like, being choked out by imperialism. And this is really like the basis for international solidarity that we see, is that all of the struggles that people are facing, whether it's struggles in the workplace, fighting for better wages, better conditions, fighting for control over your workplace, where you don't have a boss like that, and struggles to liberate countries trying to liberate their land from foreign exploitation, and from having their land being used as like a giant military base, a launching pad for these wars of aggression. All of these struggles are connected because they have the same root cause. And unfortunately right now we see that the current ruling system, the ruling system that we've had here for the past several hundreds of years since the US started, has no matter who is in power, what face, what party, they're just factions of the same ruling class, right? So so what we see is that the way forward, because right now it's election season, they're trying to brainwash us with all these lies about how they're, scapegoating immigrants and everything, trying to make people think that we are each other's enemy, when we know who the enemy is. They're like 40 miles from us in DC, right? So, with IOPS has something called the People's Platform, and this is basically a campaign that we're trying to expose to people that their everyday issues that they're faced with, their struggles that they're experiencing in their lives, that we can't expect to just achieve change by just checking a box every 4 years. But true change has only ever been achieved when people unite and when people recognize who their enemy is and when they actually fight for it. That's when we've seen actual genuine changes occur. Changes not just at the level of a workplace or a community or a state, or changes at the level of a whole society, completely revolutionizing the way that the economy is structured so that we can actually meet people's needs and not have our whole economy set up just to funnel profits to the 1%. So, and we see that when people are waging these struggles, that the same state that is sending so much of our tax money off to war, that it cracks down with the harshest form of repression. We've seen our Palestinian allies and our own organizers be arrested and brutalized in the streets for standing up against a genocide. And we see the same tactics deployed against workers in the workplace to try and crush their genuine attempts for unionization and control over their workplaces. So we recognize that it's really important for us to actually defend those struggles and defend it by waging campaigns and really recognizing where our unity is and how we can strengthen that. So I'll just speak a bit about a personal hero of mine who's coming actually to DC to give a speaking tour in I think 2 weeks, honestly, or 3 weeks. But his name is Brandon Lee. He is a Chinese American activist who moved to the Philippines after getting involved with the movement during the protests against the Iraq War. And he lived in the Philippines with the indigenous peoples for I think over 10 years, and was really a part of taking up their militant struggles for land, for self-determination, for an end to the exploitation of their community by all of these plunderous mining corporations and U.S. military. So because of his activism, he was targeted for assassination. He was shot 4 times, and the bullets that are still lodged in his spine are bullets that were bought with our tax money. You know, the tax money that is skimmed off the paychecks of Amazon workers, of all workers here in the U.S.
Yeah.
So, you know, his life is really impactful to me because this is someone who gave the ultimate sacrifice, right? Who stood up for what is right and who really internalizes this principle of international solidarity, being willing to give your life for a struggle that, you know, you might not have grown up with, but we all see that this is a collective fight for our liberation, and we have to be united and recognize who our enemy is and, you know, really fight it. So he's going to be coming here September 21st for a speaking conference in DC. If y'all are interested in coming out to that and learning more about the current struggle happening in the Philippines, come up and talk to me afterwards. But thank you all so much for giving me a chance to speak. Long live international solidarity.
Thank you very much. Unless I've missed anybody, I believe that is the end of our program. Oh, Carrington. So sorry.
Good afternoon, everyone. The paper's huge, but there's not a lot of words on it. My notebook's just comically large. All right. Facial scanning, AI-assisted tracking, targeting, and following, AI-powered guns with cameras on them, drones, AI-assisted damage calculations, estimates, and assessments, and all these things are only some of the tools used by the apartheid regime to oppress, displace, and kill the Palestinian population. These very tools are funded and researched by American corporations like Google and Amazon through channels such as Project Nimbus. These artificial machines are fed not just by the American dollar, but also actively feed like vampires off of the blood, sweat, and tears of the Amazon workforce. Every package packed, loaded, and delivered is money for Amazon, and instead of improving the lives of those that work every day, day in and day out for this behemoth, the powers in charge would rather actively avoid the cries and calls for help, turning instead to continue to fund the genocide partially powered by their shiny or invisible investments. Frantz Fanon talks about how challenging the colonial or imperial world is not a back and forth of conversation or of respective viewpoints, but how it's an impassioned and fiery claim by the colonized and oppressed population that their world is fundamentally different. Our class siblings at Amazon, within the belly of the beast, face off in this challenge every day. Wage theft, lack of proper competent leadership, threat of whistleblower or any kind of retaliation, unsafe working conditions, and the looming feeling of just a general lack of job security are all problems faced by workers at Amazon. Put a pin in that. The fate of democracy is bound up, we have seen, with the fate of the labor movement. It's a very famous quote. We saw at the DNC how the Democratic Party embraced unions with open arms, letting representatives speak and endorse the ticket to roaring cheers and applause. All the while, just on the other side of those building walls and government fences, the same Democratic Party rejected and openly opposed the voices of laborers and union workers calling for an end to the illegal occupation and genocide of the Palestinian people. This country is trying to ignore the blood on its hands. However, it doesn't seem to realize that it is drenched in blood, most of which includes the blood of the American worker as well. To cleanse this mess, we can start with two places that intersect: divesting from Project Nimbus and any other partnership with the genocidal Israeli government, and immediately improving the conditions for Amazon workers. To pull the pin off of the wall from earlier, it is now clear how the struggles of Amazon workers is one of many struggles, tangentially tied to the heartbeat of the struggle that is in Palestine. And it's clear that the only way to start changing things is a movement created by the people, for the people. We see that those above us at any moment can put a group of people in their sights and target them, while preaching unity to those who are lucky enough to survive and not be picked yet. This quote by an advisor of the Iraq War sums it up perfectly. Every now and again, the United States has to pick up a crappy little country and throw it against a wall just to prove we are serious. To stop this vicious cycle, we must organize in our communities and everywhere around us so the government, let me just drop that page, so the government cannot use the strength we provide them to do harm to any peoples on a whim anymore, and instead put these resources into improving the daily lives of all members of society everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. That wraps up our official program. I did want to announce an event that's taking place next week. Dr. Hina Syed, who's a local doctor, was able to attend a 10-day medical mission in Gaza and is coming to give a report back on her experiences there. That is next Thursday at St. Mark's Lutheran Church, 6 p.m. I'm hoping people can come out to that. Thank you everybody for coming out today. This is going to be an ongoing campaign. The Senate demands, as they are open to feedback from Amazon workers and endorsing organizations, and we're going to be taking endorsements for as long as the campaign lasts. And again, thank you very much. If people could stay for a group picture, please.
Yeah. More.
Just get in front of the banner.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, there are other signs.
Some people may need to kneel in the front.
Is it okay to get in front of it? And I'll be in front of it.
It's okay, it's just a photo.
This is what you do in the absence
More
of a
about
wide
the
angle.
people.
I'm just going to say this not so that anybody needs to put their sign up in front of their face. That's a couple of them.
Oh, okay, sorry.
This is a public picture. Thank you all. Sorry.
No, thank you. Thank you everyone for coming.
You didn't have your picture up.
What do you mean?